Hello, Something Guys and Gals. This is Something Guy 912 back into the fray once more with the Root Canal chapter of maps in the Odd Architecture series with D1 underscore canals underscore O2, erroneously the third map in the Root Canal chapter. If any of you just so happen to stumble into this series with this being the first episode, I'll reiterate that this series has me tackle the architecture of these maps based on how realistic they would be as opposed to their innate gameplay mechanics. Concessions will occur as a result of this, especially with the more combat-oriented levels of the Canal's maps. With that out of the way again, let's get into the meat of the map. Alright, and now we have transitioned into the map itself, following from Alpha. I'm just going to call it Alpha instead of D1 underscore canals underscore O1A, just for my own sanity. So following up, we go out from this pipe into this slope. Now, something I didn't mention before from the prior map is the water level from this map translated into the Riley SV pre-war version has the water kind of not reached to this pipe area. But assuming that it did, why would there be a slope here? Because the slope would imply like trash or rubble would go down there. But if it's just water, then there's no reason to have a slope. And then more to the point, like, if this water is supposed to flow to the right here, why is the architecture designed this way that there's a trench here? And obviously you're going to say, well, the trench is there to do the concrete puzzle. And yes, of course, but again, you know, in terms of what this originally served is a little bit odd to me. I mean, maybe this trench was used to make sure that the water didn't overflow to the top, but these pipes seem to imply that the water gets up to this level a lot, and that will be some other weird architecture when we go over the rest of this area, because, for example, we have this door to this platform here. Now, I don't know if a ladder is supposed to be here, or if there's even a way for anyone to get up here normally, if this is just supposed to be like a balcony to oversee like how the water's going, but there's no other railings or bars around to imply that this is a balcony, but you know, there's not any here, so it's kind of hard to understand whether this is a balcony or not. But more to the point, this balcony is at level with these pipes, which means that this area gets flooded over, similarly to the sewer level in CTF2 Fort, funnily enough. So, moving on, before we interact with the Hunter Chopper and it shoots down on us, obviously I have no target set on, we have these wooden beams from the prior map. Now, compared to the wooden beams from the last map, these ones, you could almost make an argument that they make sense to be here because of this extended gap in the architecture to make sure this isn't so, I don't know, like, load-bearing, I suppose. So, like, those you could probably make a decent argument for, even if they're still a little bit perplexing. Now, before we go down into the slope and have the Hunter Chopper shoot down on us, we have this huge bridge over here, and as far as I could tell, it's mostly cohesive with itself as well as what we understand of the prior maps that we've covered thus far. So, nothing out of the ordinary there. And then we slide down here, and the Hunter Chopper is going to come down and shoot at us, but it's not going to shoot because I'm obviously not present, so I don't want it to just constantly shoot at me because it's not going to do anything in the first place. Something I just want to show, just to flex my knowledge, is if you stay to the left and jump just before you fall off, you can land on this little like thing that you can walk on and subvert a pretty good portion of the area that you have to get inside to avoid the Hunter Chopper. But even more to the point of that, you can avoid doing the entire canal section if you just jump on this piece of rubble here, and then jump on top of this railing. Now, obviously, I'm on Gmod, so the movement mechanics are a little bit different, but I tested this in Half-Life 2, the 20th Anniversary Edition, and you can do it on Half-Life 2 as well. So it's not like I'm not like cheating because of the fact that I can move considerably farther, run and jump considerably farther. Now, for this dried out portion of the canal, again, you know, I have background footage. Okay. I have background footage of Riley SV's interpretation of this section of the canals. that kind of shows where like the water level might have been, and like it's a really good attempt. Again, I am very impressed by, you know, his map making, but I do think it causes some issue. Like, for example, we have this slightly lowered area where you have to avoid this barnacle, and I think this area would have probably gotten flooded if this water was actually filled to the area, to the level that I think it should, especially given the fact that you had those pipes at the beginning of this map that were extremely high up, to imply that this area gets flooded pretty often. Now, more to the point about this dried out canal is a lot of the rubble here is a little bit inexplicable. Some of it could make sense, like, you know, boards, barrels, crates. Some of it not so much, like all of this concrete rubble jutting out. Like, you have two pieces of fence that seem like they were here for a reason at one point, even though this area probably was filled with water before it's been essentially put into disuse. And then, like, even here you have just a full-ass truck, and then, like, just a portion of wall to a building just being used as, like, I guess cover, like pseudo cover for the Hunter chopper fire, which, yeah, makes sense in terms of gameplay. Just realistically, I don't think this would have been plopped down here like this. A lot of this stuff probably wouldn't have been plopped down here. Anyhow, we will move on into the canal itself. I could have just no clip through. So, entering into the canals, immediately, as you'll notice, we have this little, you know, cache. But obviously, the design of this is only here such that there's this little cubby to hold off, you know, hoard some goodies. That's literally its only purpose here. There's no, like, practical use for a ladder or this cubby. And then going up here, we have this little cupboard. You know, we have these burnt out corpses to imply the, I always keep wanting to call them incubators, but the cut enemy that uses the flamethrower, like, to imply that those kinds of enemies would have been in the game at one point. Anyhow, so this little area has this little nuke here with, you know, the burned out corpse and some more supplies, as well as a exploding barrel. But obviously this little section doesn't make any sense in terms of what its use is. Like, maybe you could try to really, like, you know, wring my arm and say that this gap here is supposed to keep water from overfilling the little canal section, but beyond that, it's a little bit inexplicable. And then as for the rest of this canal, it's actually quite cohesive, surprisingly. I mean, it's a little bit dungeon-esque to me with these bars, because why would you have these bars here if you have these railings here? You know? Like, just so that, like, some poor, like, sewage worker has to slide down this ugly, you know, disgusting mess, as well as these barnacles. And not to mention the fact that these gaps for these barnacles doesn't make any sense, like, practically. Like, it's not, like, structural integrity or anything like that. And in fact, I think this would probably cause less structural integrity with this canal. Also of note, too, is that this canal section, like, apart from that nuke in the cubby area, is actually quite symmetrical. Like, this walkway and this door are basically parallel with the walkway and the door here, as well as these slopes. You know? So, like, I was kind of surprised by that. And then we run out here, and that's shooting the... For some reason, I think there's a mechanic where this Hunter Chopper shoots these boards from the sewer grate. And now I'm actually noticing it. Why are there boards in front of a sewer grate if the grate's there, you know? Like, what's the point of the boards? Like, the grate's already doing the work. I didn't even have that in my notes. I just noticed that now, just as a commentary. Anyhow, moving on. We'll come across this sign that is, you know, inexplicably in English, despite the fact that we are supposedly in an Eastern Europe-like setting. And I'm going to assume that this might have to do with the fact that they probably had assets for the beta version, which was supposed to be set in New York, and didn't have the time to change it into something that was Russian or something like that. And then we'll move out here. And that is about it for this map before the level transition. There'll probably be more to say about the design of this canal section, but we're going to be hitting the level transition here. So that is it for D1 underscore canals underscore O2. And that was that for D1 underscore canals underscore O2. Sorry this episode didn't arrive sooner than expected, but I had gotten under a cold the last few days with a slight bout of insomnia to spice things up in my life. Anyhow, I hope you enjoyed this episode and more to follow.